On moonless nights in Iraq, a sergeant once whispered to me by the flickering firelight, "I saw it, Professor. A djinn." It stood there, in the middle of the desert, twice the height of a normal man, laughing at me with a mouth that had no lips. He trembled, his eyes sunken as if he'd just escaped hell. The local legends weren't jokes. They were warnings that foreign soldiers were never prepared to face. If war is a giant ritual, then the negative energy from millions of deaths could have torn open the boundaries between us and other dimensions. A colleague scoffed, but I just replied, "You haven't heard the heavy footsteps of a cryptid in the jungles of Vietnam, or the whispers of ghosts on a Shao hill. From the dense jungles of Vietnam to the dusty deserts of Afghanistan, every land carries its own legends. Stories of UFOs landing in the dead of night, of skinwalkers shape-shifting into comrades to deceive lost soldiers, or of time slips causing entire squads to vanish without a trace. The locals whisper, 'Don't go in there.' They are waiting. But war doesn't allow them to stop." One evening, I sat with a veteran in Texas, his hand gripping mine tightly, his voice raspy. "I swear, Professor, I saw Bigfoot. It stood there, in the forests of Germany, over 10 feet tall, looking at me like it wanted to devour me. I shot, but the bullets passed through it like shooting into fog." Stories like these aren't rare. They are proof that, on the line between life and death, humans face not only visible enemies, but also invisible specters. What happens when a boy from rural America, accustomed only to churches and pastures, is thrown into the battlefields of Afghanistan, where people believe jinn can possess anyone? He hears the wind whistle into words, sees dark shadows flit past the tents, and feels a bone-chilling cold that no fire can dispel. It's not hallucination. It's the collision of two worlds, where reality shatters into a nightmare. I often end my lectures with a sentence that sends shivers down my students' spines. Whether you believe it or not, when you stand on the battlefield, when the breath of death is on your neck, and something not of this world touches your shoulder, you will believe. Trust me, those soldiers aren't lying. They saw, and they never forget. Hey kid, this is the last time I'm telling you. Get out now! Nick's desperate shout tore through the night, but the only response was a terrifying silence, heavy as lead pressing on the chest. Not a sound, not a breath, only the deep darkness behind the metal door staring back at them, like a soulless, menacing eye. "Is something wrong, buddy?" Nick quickly stepped forward, his rifle still pointed ahead, his voice taut as a bowstring in the oppressive atmosphere of the ruined downtown area. He felt an unusual chill crawl up his spine, not from the night wind, but from something lurking in the shadows, waiting for them to let their guard down. "Oh my God, I swear I just saw a kid run into that room," James stammered, cold sweat running down his forehead, even though his heart was still pounding from the shock. He turned to his comrade, his voice trembling. Did you see him run out this way? Please tell me you did." His eyes pleaded, as if just one confirmation was enough to keep him from the abyss of fear. "Huh? Buddy, I've been standing guard here the whole time. Haven't seen a ghost go in or out." The other replied, his voice hesitant, his eyes scrutinizing his comrade as if looking for signs of madness. He smirked weakly. "You sure you're not just stressed out and seeing things? Or maybe you really did see a ghost?" The half-joking words only made the air heavier, colder. "Damn it! You think I'm kidding?" James roared, the initial fear now erupting into anger. "I saw him clear as day, like I'm looking at your face right now. A damn kid. He ran in there fast as hell." He pointed towards the door, his voice cracking, and for a moment, He wondered if his own eyes had been deceived by the darkness, or if it had chosen him to play with. "All right, calm down." Nick raised a hand soothingly, but his voice held a hint of sarcasm. "Maybe you should take the rest of the night shift off. Get some sleep, clear your head, before you start seeing Jinn dancing in front of you." Despite his words, he couldn't hide his own unease. The cold from the stained walls seemed to seep into his bones, and his eyes began darting around the area more quickly, as if fearing his comrade's words were true. "What the hell is this place?" James muttered, his voice fading to a whisper. He looked up at the walls covered in bizarre graffiti, distorted images like screaming faces, interspersed with bullet holes. Places like this, soaked in blood and despair, are fertile ground for Jinn and other supernatural entities. They feed on fear, and this place was their feast. This is a chilling story I received from a U.S. Army veteran nicknamed Black Jeep Convertible, a name evoking a tough guy, but his storytelling voice trembled as if he'd just returned from hell. He wrote, "Our unit was stationed in a ruined 4-story shopping mall in Iraq. The war had turned it into rubble, and we had to pull our own night guard duty, alone amidst the suffocating silence. Each man had his post," he continued, "but there was one room on the top floor that gave the whole unit the creeps. It was notorious, not because of the enemy, but because of the unexplainable things. It all started around midnight," he wrote, "when the darkness seemed to come alive. Whispers echoed from the decaying walls, like someone calling your name in a language no one understood. Then the dragging sound, heavy, slow, from the floor above, like someone dragging a body across the floor. I shined my flashlight up, but saw nothing but thick darkness. The hair on my neck stood on end, and I knew it was looking back at me. In my dense archives, there are accounts from U.S. soldiers in Iraq who faced Jinn, ancient spirits in Arab culture, both captivating and terrifying, capable of taking any form, from a harmless child to a bloodthirsty monster. They weren't just legends, but living horrors in the eyes of those soldiers. The story begins at the smoke pit, a dark corner in the ruined Baghdad shopping mall, where the smell of cigarettes mingled with the breath of death. It wasn't just a resting place, but where soldiers whispered secrets no one dared speak in daylight. I believe this gloomy space, having witnessed bloodshed and tears, became a gateway for Jinn to enter their world. That night, the suffocating silence was suddenly shattered by a panicked scream. Hey, stop. Who's there?" The strained cry came from a soldier, his eyes wide, whites showing, as if he'd just seen something not of this earth. The darkness ahead seemed to swallow the sound, leaving only the pounding of his heart in his chest. Another soldier, guarding nearby, spun around startled, hand tightening on his rifle, his voice tight with tension. "What is it, man? You see someone? Enemy contact?" He scanned the dark corners, where the flashlight beam only illuminated a few feet before being swallowed by the night. The air suddenly felt heavy, as if something was stalking them, waiting. James gasped for breath, sweat pouring despite the cold night. A damn kid. He appeared out of nowhere. I swear my heart almost jumped out of my chest. He pointed towards the thick darkness where that thing had just vanished. His eyes reflected panic, as if he had felt the cold touch of another world on his skin. "Where did he go? Describe him," Nick pressed, trying to keep his voice calm, but his eyes had started to waver. He moved closer to his comrade, hand still on the trigger, as if whatever was hiding could leap out at any moment. Jinn love games. They tease humans, make them doubt their own senses. Damn it! He zipped past me, fast as hell, then shot straight into that dark storage room over there. James yelled, his trembling hand pointing towards the old, creaking metal door. The door was slightly ajar, eerily inviting them into the darkness, an invitation no one wanted to accept. The wind whistling through the crack sounded like a soft, chilling laugh. Nick swallowed hard, raised his rifle, and yelled into the deep void behind the door. Hey, you, come out now. Don't make me come in and drag you out. He tried to sound tough, but the tremor at the end of his sentence betrayed his fear. The darkness didn't answer. Only his own echo bounced back, distorted and ghostly, as if something was mimicking his words in silence. Get out now! Do you hear me? He shouted again, but the sound just echoed and faded, leaving a deathly silence. The flashlight in his hand trembled slightly, its weak beam shining into the darkness, where strange shadows seemed to dance on the walls. I knew for sure. Jinn never reveal themselves immediately. They wait, observe, and choose the moment you are weakest. James, still reeling, muttered as if to himself, "Stupid kids. What the hell are they doing here at this hour?" Or maybe that wasn't a kid? His voice trailed off, almost a whisper, as a terrifying thought crept into his mind. He turned to his comrade, eyes wide. "Did you hear footsteps?" "I swear I didn't hear anything before it appeared." That suspicion was like a cold blade slicing through the air, plunging them both into a primal, unanswered fear. I used to stare out into the pitch-black night outside, trying to find some light to reassure myself, the veteran black Jeep convertible recounted, his voice low and muffled, as if swallowed by darkness. But what chilled us wasn't the enemy out there, but the sounds right behind us. Shuffling footsteps, light but distinct, like someone tiptoeing around, watching us in the dark. I'd turn around, flashlight beams sweeping everywhere. But there was nothing but cold air and the feeling of being watched. At first, I was so scared my heart felt like it would stop, he confessed, his voice trembling slightly at the memory. But then, we had to get used to it. Buddy, on this battlefield, what other choice do you have but to accept living with that damn thing? That resignation didn't lessen the horror, but only made it more chilling, as if they had unwillingly signed a pact with the invisible entities lurking around them. But then, around 3 a.m., that goddamn hour when everything goes crazy, he continued, his voice thick with horror as if just stepping out of a nightmare. That's when the darkness stopped playing hide and seek and revealed itself to challenge us. I heard my buddy scream from the floor above. And when I ran up, I knew instantly. It had crossed the line from a mere prank. My friend was on night watch, he detailed, his voice slowing as if wanting to prolong each terrifying moment. Next to him was a huge, black trash bag, bulging with empty ripped fuel cans and water bottles. Then suddenly, without a sound, without warning, the bag was lifted into the air. It hovered, as if held by an invisible hand, before being thrown violently onto the floor. Trash scattered everywhere, and I swear, the impact sounded like something laughing in the darkness. It scared the hell out of him, he recounted, his voice quickening. His face went white as a sheet, screaming bloody murder. Damn it, there's something here. Then grabbed a chair and threw it hard into the darkness in front of him. He keyed his radio, his voice cracking. "Sock, get up here now. I can't be alone with this thing." That fear wasn't just a reflex. It was a cry for help from a soldier pushed to the brink, facing an enemy that couldn't be shot down with a gun. Incidents like this weren't random. They repeated, like a terrifying pattern. The veteran nodded in confirmation. The sergeants in the unit told similar stories. They'd chased small figures, resembling local kids, running into empty rooms. But here's the creepy part. Those rooms only had one entrance, and they were blocking it. So where did they disappear to? It's so absurd it gives me goosebumps every time I think about it, he emphasized, his voice dropping as if afraid someone might overhear. Strict rules, no civilians, no children allowed in this area. This is a war zone, dilapidated and deadly, not a playground. So what were those kids? I once asked an Iraqi soldier. He just looked at me and whispered, "Jinn. They like to shapeshift to trick people." Then another time, he continued, his voice heavy as if carrying the weight of horrific memories. A Marine buddy of mine, the toughest guy in the unit, froze on the spot. I saw him standing there, eyes wide, staring into a dark corner, unable to speak, like something was choking him. I yelled, "What's wrong with you? Say something." But he just trembled, pointing into the darkness, stammering, It's there." What he saw, he whispered, as if afraid the very air would betray him, was a faint, almost transparent apparition in the shape of an Iraqi soldier in tattered fatigues. It stepped out from the dark corner, slowly, silently, then sat down right next to him. I swear, the silence then felt like it was crushing us. He later recounted, "I felt it looking at me, but it had no eyes, just two empty black sockets." The soldier black Jeep convertible recounted, his voice trembling as if choked by memory. Throughout that terrifying watch, I sat still as a statue, frozen with fear. That thing, the cold apparition, was right beside me, so close I could feel it with every pore, though I didn't dare turn to look. I kept repeating in my head, "Don't look, don't look," because I knew if I faced it, I wouldn't be able to handle it. The ruined shopping mall stood starkly in Baghdad, its walls scarred with bullet holes and deep craters from explosions, like a silent witness to violence. When we first arrived, we just thought simply, "This place must have been a fierce battlefield. Lots of people died," he said. But no one expected the horrific truth behind those walls. It wasn't just a place where people died, but a living tomb, soaked in blood and hatred. That cursed room, he whispered, used to be a magnificent nightclub where lights flashed and laughter echoed. But under the hands of Saddam Hussein's two brutal sons, it turned into a slaughterhouse. They tortured, killed without mercy. Victims' blood soaked the floor. Their screams, "Hua Vao Kong Ki," blended into the air. When I learned this, I got chills. We were standing on a graveyard of vengeful spirits. The contrast between extreme joy and agony creates dark spiritual energy, like a magnet attracting supernatural entities. Jeep felt it every night. The room wasn't just cold, it was alive. The laughter of the past now mingled with moans, as if the trapped souls were still trying to escape. "That's not all," he continued, his voice dropping lower. "That room had an entrance to the rooftop, where the two villains threw victims down after torturing them. I went up there once. The night wind whistled through wall cracks like choked screams. Once, I swear I heard the sound of breaking bones echoing from below, even though no one fell. That place wasn't just where people died. It was a gateway straight to hell. My worst experience happened during the witching hour," he said, his eyes reflecting an unfading obsession. "The shift from midnight to 4 a.m., when the darkness is thick enough to swallow everything. I stood there, trying to stay awake, but my senses were so sharp I could hear my own heartbeat. Thump, 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 like a countdown to when it would appear. It started as usual, shuffling footsteps behind me, faint dragging sounds repeating for hours. Jeep was used to it, or rather, fooled himself into thinking he was used to it. He kept his eyes glued to the broken window, where faint city light filtered in. The only anchor to sanity amidst the bone-chilling cold of the room. But wearing night vision goggles makes everything more terrifying, he explained, his voice slightly rushed. One eye sees a ghostly green circle. The other is lost in darkness. You have no peripheral vision. If something stalks you, you won't know until it jumps into view, right in front of you. If a jinn appears, it will choose the exact moment I can't see it to attack. Then, near 3 a.m., that damn hour, after 3 tense hours staring into the void, I suddenly heard a whisper right next to my ear, so close that its cold breath touched Jeep's skin, like someone's lips half an inch from his ear, whispering something unintelligible. Jeep felt it. Not hallucination, but real. I screamed like crazy, he recounted, his voice cracking in panic. Don't mess with me. You know I'm scared of this damn thing. I'll shoot. I swear I'll shoot. Jeep ripped off the night vision goggles, spun around, gun pointed into the darkness. But there was nothing. Only a faint laugh. Very faint. As if it was mocking him. It wasn't just sound. It violated me. And I knew. It wanted me to be afraid. I've never reacted so fast in my life, the soldier black Jeep convertible recounted, his voice hurried as if still caught in that moment. In a split second, I jumped up, spun 180 degrees, rifle already loaded, flashlight on the barrel switched on, pointing straight into the darkness. I was ready to shoot. Shoot a ghost if I had to. At that moment, there was no reason left, only the survival instinct. In that crazy moment, he confessed, his voice trembling slightly. I still hoped, a foolish hope, that it was just a prank by one of my buddies. I imagined seeing a familiar face, grinning stupidly, just scaring ya. But deep down, I knew it wasn't real. The chilling cold next to my ear wasn't something a human could create. But that flicker of hope vanished as soon as the flashlight beam swept across. Nothing, he muttered, his voice lost in panic. Not a soul, not a sound. Only the thick darkness staring back at me, cold and challenging. Heart pounding, like it wanted to break out of my chest, but Jeep still couldn't believe it. Where did the thing that just whispered in my ear go? Jeep checked every corner, he recounted, his voice taut as a bowstring. Gun raised high, footsteps cautiously moving through the adjacent rooms. No one, no trace. Only the thick smell of damp mold and the eerie silence enveloping everything. Jeep told himself, "You didn't imagine it. You really heard it." But the darkness remained silent, as if mocking Jeep's helplessness. Desperate, he came up with a crazy idea. "Damn it, I have to see you," he screamed in his head, ripping open a box of chemical light sticks. He snapped each one, throwing them scattered across the floor, a faint green light flooding out. Jeep thought it would help him spot it, anything that moved. But Jeep was wrong, terribly wrong. That action was the cry for help of a soldier losing control, using physical tools against the invisible. Before, the darkness was where I hid. But when the green light covered the room, it turned everything into a nightmare. Shadows danced on the walls, flickers of illusion in the corner of my eye. Jeep thought it was gliding past, but every time he looked closely, there was nothing. It made Jeep even more scared, he recounted, his voice trembling. That faint light didn't dispel the darkness. It amplified the fear, turning the room into the jinn's stage. Jeep felt surrounded, watched from every direction. Once, I swore I saw a faint hand reaching out from a corner, but when I blinked, it vanished. Terrified, he made a risky decision. Jeep didn't dare turn his back to the room again, he said, his voice determined. I sat there, facing the darkness, back pressed hard against the broken windowsill. Screw the outside world. Jeep would rather let the whole patrol find him out of position than face what was inside for another second. Even if a car bomb drove straight into the building, I wouldn't care, he growled, bitterness mixed with fear. At that moment, the enemy outside was nothing compared to the ghost lurking in the darkness. Jeep would rather face real bullets than the chilling cold from something unseen, unshootable. It wasn't just scaring Jeep. It wanted Jeep to know it was there, and Jeep was helpless. Jeep's story doesn't stand alone. Another veteran, Goody Tiger 57, who was stationed at the same cursed location, spoke up to confirm. I read his story and got goosebumps, he wrote. I saw it too. Not just whispers, but shadows gliding past, so fast you thought your eyes were playing tricks. But when I chased it, it vanished into the wall, as if the building swallowed it. That place isn't normal. It's alive, and it remembers everything. The very first day we set foot in that damn shopping mall, Goody Tiger 57 wrote, his voice seemingly still trembling at the memory. We all exclaimed in unison, "My God, this place is creepy." It was like walking into a horror movie. No, 100 times worse than Shaun of the Dead. A pile of rubble, silent to the point of being terrifying, the air heavy as if someone was staring from the darkness. With the curious and reckless minds of young soldiers, they charged straight down to the basement, exploring to see if there was anything interesting, a decision they later wished they'd never considered. Down there, it was pitch black. Not a single ray of light. The cold, damp air seeped into our skin. Guns in hand, but they were useless. Fear crawled up our throats. Not from the enemy, but from something invisible. That cold wasn't normal, like someone breathing down your neck. In the group, he recalled, me and a few others couldn't take it. My legs automatically sprinted back upstairs, heart pounding like it would explode. Having seen plenty of horror movies, I knew staying meant death. The other guys laughed at us for being cowards, but at that moment, I just wanted to scream. Don't you feel it? There's something down there. The guys who stayed, he continued, his voice tinged with doubt, insisted they saw something in the darkness. One guy whispered. It glided past me, fast as hell. But we, the ones who ran first, just thought they were making it up to scare us. It was only the first month, with 14 long months ahead in this godforsaken place. Who knew that was just the beginning? After that, he concluded, his voice firm, we swore never to go down to the basement again. Guard post OP6 and the dark hallway around it were creepy enough for us. I used to stand there, hearing faint hisses from under the stairs, like someone calling my name. No thank you. I didn't need any more trouble from that black hole. Then another night, during a quiet watch at an unfamiliar post, the silence was broken. A rustling sound echoed, sharp and unusual, like footsteps crunching on gravel. The air suddenly grew heavy, and the familiar chill crept up the spine of the soldier on guard. He strained his ears, eyes scanning the darkness, filled with suspicion. He gently keyed his radio, whispering to his comrade at another post, his voice trembling slightly. Did you hear that? Footsteps on gravel. Which direction? Silence for a few seconds, then a broken reply over the radio. I'm not sure. Don't joke around, I heard something too. Two soldiers, dozens of yards apart, both sensed the invisible threat lurking nearby. The Middle East is where I'm most drawn. Bloody history, extreme tension. It's fertile ground for the supernatural. War here isn't just about guns and bullets. It opens doors for ancient entities, things the locals have feared for centuries. Jinn, ghosts, or something worse. They live in every grain of sand, every gust of wind. This is a story from Iraq, 2011. I listened to it over and over, and each time, the hair on my neck still stands on end. On the tape, a young soldier recounts his experience, his voice halting as if choked by memory. I knew that what was about to play would chill anyone to the bone. "What's the craziest thing you've seen out here, buddy?" A voice echoed from the tape, raspy through the old static. It was the question of another soldier, his voice curious yet anxious, as if unsure he wanted the answer. The atmosphere on the tape was heavy, foreshadowing something terrifying about to be revealed. The soldier being asked hesitated, his voice trembling slightly. "Oh, this story. Our interpreter, you know. He told me the other day." He paused, taking a deep breath, as if needing more courage to continue. He saw something he couldn't forget. "He was standing right inside these T-walls," the soldier continued, his voice haunted as if reliving the moment. "And he said, he saw a shadow without a body. I swear, hearing it sent chills down my spine, like someone poured ice water on me. Just a human-shaped shadow, but only from the waist up, man," he said, his voice clearly trembling. "It didn't have legs. Not really. It just walked right through the thick concrete wall." I stood there, listening. Couldn't believe it, but his eyes, those eyes didn't lie. He was truly scared. "Damn. Really?" the other soldier shouted through the tape, his voice filled with astonishment mixed with fear. His voice echoed, then faded into static. "I've seen dozens of reports like this. A bodiless shadow. Jinn. Or something worse. It didn't just appear. It wanted them to know it was there." "Yeah. Creepy as hell, man." The storyteller soldier nodded, his voice dropping low as if swallowed by the thick air. "I never forgot that feeling. Like someone was standing right behind you. But when you turn around, there's nothing but darkness. Ever feel like you're being stared at but don't know from where? That's exactly it." I rewound the tape, my finger pausing on a strange section of static. Suddenly, a faint sound emerged. Distant, fleeting like wind whistling through teeth, but enough to make the hair stand on end. That sound wasn't of this world. It was a whisper from another dimension. Did you hear that?" a panicked voice asked on the tape, perhaps the cameraman. His voice trembled, as if he just realized he wasn't alone. The atmosphere in the recording suddenly became heavy, as if pressed down by something invisible, making even the listener feel suffocated through the speakers. "What was that? What the hell was that, man?" the other soldier yelled, fear now evident in every syllable. "I swear I heard something. Not wind, not people, but something. Alive." His voice cracked, as if caught in a panic, and the clatter of a rifle could be heard in the background, as if he was gripping his weapon, clinging to the last shreds of courage. Where did that sound come from? I don't know. Maybe from near that Humvee over there? Someone else interjected, his voice hurried. Chaos erupted as they swept flashlights, trying to pinpoint the source of the sound. "Check it out! Hurry up!" Shouts mixed with frantic footsteps echoed, but the darkness only responded with eerie silence, like playing a deadly game of hide and seek. "I don't see anyone." The last words came out, weak and desperate, before the tape abruptly cut off. A chilling silence enveloped everything. No one. But that doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't need to show itself to make you afraid. I recalled another report from Jonathan Griffith. a veteran whose account matched the tape eerily. If this is true, then what happened in Iraq wasn't just random. It was a pattern, a sign of something larger. I opened Jonathan's email, my heart beating faster as I read each line. Jonathan wrote, Iraq, 2011, we were stationed at a patrol base, less than half a mile from the Iraq-Iran border. His writing style was dry, but haunting. The first night there, I already felt something was wrong, like stepping into a giant tomb where everything was dead, but still alive somehow. I knew this area well, a killing field from the 80s war between Iraq and Iran. Blood soaked the ground, thousands dead. No place heavier than that. Pain and resentment accumulated over decades, turning it into a magnet for supernatural entities. Jinn, ghosts, they didn't just visit, they lived there. At night, to avoid detection, Jonathan turned off all lights in the base, leaving only a single dim light in the smoking area in the middle of camp. He paused, then wrote, But that light didn't make us feel safe. It made everything worse. Standing under the light, Jonathan heard whispers from the surrounding darkness, like someone calling his name. But no one answered when Jonathan yelled out. That thick darkness wasn't just where the enemy hid. It was the perfect curtain for invisible entities. They lurked, waited, and when the time came, they stepped out to remind us that we were never truly safe. The first week there, Jonathan was assigned guard duty at the ECP gate with a guy nicknamed Alpha from another unit. He was tall, tough, but his eyes kept darting around, as if he knew something I hadn't realized yet. That night, the air was freezing cold, though there was no wind. It was around 2 or 3 a.m., the witching hour, when the veil between the living and the dead is thin as thread. They started talking about ghosts, half joking, half serious. Jonathan asked, "Do you believe in that stuff?" He gave a faint smile, but his eyes darkened, as if remembering something terrible. Then he told about the interpreter, the Terp, who saw a legless ghost, just the upper torso, gliding through a T-wall. He said, "It didn't walk, it floated, straight through the concrete like the wall didn't exist." Jonathan listened, chills running down his spine, but still tried to laugh. He probably imagined it. Not random. Something was in that base, and it didn't want to be forgotten. Jinn? Or something older? Alpha said it all started after they brought back an old piece of gear from a patrol, a rusty helmet or something. Whispers in the night, figures glimpsed in the corner of the eye, soft tapping from places where no one stood. He said, "We shouldn't have touched it. Something latched on from that thing." An attached object? I've seen dozens of cases like this. Old gear, weapons, even a piece of bone, carrying the deadly energy of the former owner. Or worse, a curse. They aren't just objects, but doorways for something to step through. Alpha talked about hearing crying from an abandoned bunker, or seeing a figure standing still in the mist without leaving footprints. Jonathan wanted to ask more, but his throat tightened, as if he too felt they were listening in. Then came the part about the base being covered in gravel to combat dust, the kind of gravel where every footstep makes a distinct crunching sound. They stood there, under the dim light, and Alpha was talking about the invisible entities haunting the base, the ghosts, the whispers. Right at that moment, Jonathan paused, leaving a dramatic silence. Both of them heard it. The crunching of gravel, slow but clear, like footsteps approaching the nearby Humvee. Alpha turned to Jonathan, his face pale. "You hear that?" Jonathan nodded, heart pounding, hand gripping his rifle tightly. They strained their eyes into the darkness, but saw nothing. Only that sound, getting closer and closer. A deathly silence fell. Jonathan swept his flashlight. Alpha aimed his rifle, but the darkness just swallowed the light. The footsteps stopped, then started again. Closer, right there, as if it knew they were looking. Jonathan whispered, "See anything?" Alpha replied, his voice taut as a bowstring. "No, but it's there. I can feel it." The file doesn't record what that sound was, leaving only a haunting ellipsis. The crunching gravel of a ghost, or the echo of thousands of souls killed beneath the ground. Whatever it was, I have to find out. This isn't just a story. It's a doorway to a more terrifying truth. Jonathan shook his head, heart pounding like it wanted to burst through his ribs. No. Too dark. "Put on the night vision," he growled, hands trembling as he activated the device. The ghostly green light from the night vision goggles, nods, flooded out, sweeping across the night, but only the blurry shapes of vehicles and inanimate objects appeared. No sign of life answered the echoing footsteps. "There's nothing," Alpha whispered, his voice fading as if swallowed by the darkness. The green light from the goggles only made the space more bizarre, like another world not meant for them. Jonathan scanned the area with the nods, breathing heavily. "You see anything? Say something." But Alpha just shook his head, eyes fixed on the void. "No, but I swear, it was just here." Modern night vision detected nothing. This rules out humans or animals. This is a clear sign of a supernatural entity. The footsteps couldn't be hallucination. Both heard them. The thing was real, but it didn't want to be seen. Not a person, not a creature nearby. Only the sound of crunching gravel echoing in their minds, like a chilling reminder from the darkness. A cold shiver ran down Jonathan's spine, not from the cold, but because he knew something was near. Too near. But his eyes couldn't catch it. This place is terrifyingly creepy, especially having to walk around at night in complete darkness. The head-mounted flashlight only gave a faint bit of light, like a candle in a storm. Every step was a moment Jonathan wondered, will I make it back this time? The darkness in isolated war zones isn't just where enemies hide. It's a veil for primal fears. Entities that don't need light to exist. I once heard a soldier say, "The flashlight doesn't help you see better. It just makes you realize you're being hunted." Jonathan always felt watched during night patrols. He recounted, like a pair of invisible eyes following every step, every breath. Once he stopped, turned quickly, but only saw his shadow on the wall. Or was it the shadow of something else? Jonathan wasn't sure anymore. That creepy feeling isn't unusual. I've read hundreds of similar reports. Invisible eyes in the dark, a classic sign of paranormal phenomena. It gnaws at their spirit, making them doubt their own senses. Not knowing where the threat comes from, in front, behind, or from another dimension, is what pushes them to the edge. These soldiers aren't just fighting the enemy. They face a fear far beyond conventional warfare. Something that can't be shot, can't be outrun. It follows them from the battlefield into their dreams, and sometimes for the rest of their lives. Many soldiers, after experiences like these, are never the same. They hide the pain, try to act tough, get over it and move on as the military teaches. But I see them, the explosive anger, the gnawing loneliness, and the empty eyes when they remember what they dare not speak of. I met someone like that once, recalling a veteran he interviewed. He talked about a ghost in Iraq, then fell silent, hands trembling, gripping the chair tightly. He didn't seek help, didn't dare. The military forged them into steel, but didn't teach them how to deal with wounds that don't bleed, from war or from supernatural entities. That night, Jonathan stepped out of the tent, the heavy air enveloping him. Jonathan felt something wasn't right, he whispered to himself, eyes darting into the thick darkness. The pressure from the battlefield, from family, and the expectation to be okay, like everyone else, had pushed him into a dark spiral, where the laughter of comrades was now just a distant echo, drowned out by the whistling wind. Or was it the whisper of some invisible entity? I believe confronting these terrifying experiences is key to survival. Burying them only makes you prey. For Jonathan, recording his story in the report wasn't just a way to unburden himself, but also a ritual to drag the ghosts in his mind into the light, however faint that light might be. Suddenly, my train of thought was shattered by a chilling sound from the new file on my desk. I played the audio recording, and the room's atmosphere immediately became oppressive. A hair-raising whisper slithered through the speaker. Demons. Then a slow, dry clapping sound echoed like breaking bones, before the voice finished with the haunting phrase, "Orsh, the children." I felt my spine go cold, as if something had just brushed past the back of my neck. The screams on the recording erupted, sharp as knives cutting through the night. "Keep going straight back." "Yeah, just keep going." Another voice interjected, rushed and panicked. "Hey, hey, hey, stop right now." The chaos in the sound wasn't just human voices. There was also the whistling wind, the clash of metal, as if an invisible force was pulling all the strings. The climax of horror arrived when a cold command rang out. "Flip it over to the right." What is it? An inanimate object? Or someone who had fallen, manipulated by something beyond comprehension? The ambiguity in that voice made me uneasy, like standing before a bottomless abyss where curiosity and fear merged into one. Reaching to check the source of the tape, I found it came with an email sent in April 2024. My heart pounded with a mix of excitement and apprehension. This was a door to a new, darker chapter in the collection of military supernatural stories I had painstakingly researched. Another soldier, and another mystery waiting to be unraveled. The email sender was Tyler, a veteran who didn't give his last name. Tyler belonged to Bravo Company 2506, 101st Airborne Division. Tyler was stationed south of Baghdad, at Fob Falcon. A familiar place name, where blood and whispers from the unseen realm had soaked every grain of sand. South Baghdad and Fob Falcon were no strangers to me. Reports from there always carried the smell of gunpowder and chilling tales. Fleeting shadows in the night. Laughter echoing from nowhere. To me, it was a place where the line between life and death, between reality and nightmare, was so thin that a mere gust of wind could shatter it. Tyler was assigned to a small hole in the wall called the Doghouse, located on Route Senators, turning onto Route Red Wings southeast of Fob Falcon. The Doghouse, like a trap imprisoning both the living and lost souls. That house used to be an IED factory, homemade bombs growling, waiting for lives. Later, Delta Company captured it and turned it into a base. Imagine the lingering smell of gunpowder and dried blood in the air. A place like that, steeped in death, was surely fertile ground for supernatural entities to breed, lurking in every dark corner. Route Red Wings, long and winding, finally split into a Y shape right at the Doghouse. That road, a narrow strip of land, curving like the spine of a giant beast, leading to a place where light rarely touched. It felt like an invitation, inviting both the living and the dead. Tyler set up static patrol teams along the road for overlapping observation down its length. I understood the tactic well. Safe, but also risky. Soldiers isolated in the darkness, with only flashlights and the wind for company. They weren't just guarding against the enemy, but also against things that never materialized. At the Y junction where the doghouse stood, Tyler's unit had erected sturdy barriers, stopping any vehicle daring to pass OP Red to the south. No one was allowed further, a forbidden zone sealed off, silent under the pale moonlight, as if the darkness itself was whispering warnings no one heard. Tyler placed jersey barriers on the road to stop traffic flow from the south. The gray concrete blocks stood starkly like soulless guards, turning the road beyond into a mysterious void. Could something, or someone, be hiding in that forbidden zone, waiting for the moment to rise from the terrifying stillness? That fateful night, Tyler's unit was preparing to leave their static patrol positions to transition into the QRF role. Quick reaction force, always ready to charge into danger. They were like leashed beasts, just waiting for the signal to break free. The Baghdad air that night was already thick with the scent of danger and unspoken omens. We had to back the trucks into a small nearby road, Tyler recalled, and he was always the last one. Alone in the last Humvee of the convoy, eyes strained against the thick darkness, where every shadow could morph into a threat, or something more terrifying. Tyler's job was to watch the two blocked roads ahead. He was at a key position, where life and death were separated by a split second of inattention. Tyler felt like he was staring into the mouth of a monster. He once whispered to a comrade after a shift, "I understood that the darkness wasn't just the enemy. It was also a mirror reflecting the deepest fears in the soul." Tyler described the surroundings with chilling detail. Like everywhere in Iraq, houses had their own compound walls, made of brick, topped with shards of broken glass. Those walls under the dim moonlight, the glass shards glittering like the fangs of a giant creature, both protecting and imprisoning, creating hidden corners where light never reached. Between the road and the walls were low, scrubby bushes. Those bushes, in Tyler's eyes, weren't just perfect hiding spots for the enemy. They were also curtains concealing nameless entities, shapes that only night vision could reveal. Tyler watched the road and the bushes. A lone soldier, trapped amidst encompassing silence, where every rustle of leaves could be the sign of death, or something even more dreadful lurking. It was 0300 hours, the witching hour in countless files I'd studied, when the veil between worlds is so thin a single breath could tear it. That's when they appear. Tyler was backing the vehicle into position, sitting on watch, as if he was trying to suppress his fear to keep a steady hand on his weapon in the thick Baghdad night. Tyler was the gunner in the Humvee turret, the 240 Bravo machine gun growling, ready, like a predator waiting to pounce. Tyler heard the engine noise, the wind, but still felt something wasn't right. A soldier's intuition is rarely wrong, especially on nights like these. The night swallowed everything. Tyler's vision completely dependent on night vision goggles. He was guarding while signaling the driver through the narrow path. "Careful, slow down," he yelled, his voice raspy. Just one small mistake, and the heavy vehicle could slip off the path, plunging into a ditch nearly a meter, about 3 feet deep, a deadly trap in the heart of darkness. And then, amidst the extreme tension, an unusual movement caught his eye in the green view of the night vision goggles. Tyler held his breath, heart pounding like it wanted to break through his ribs. "Something's moving," he muttered, fingers tightening on the trigger. In that instant, the darkness was no longer an ally. It had become the enemy, and what was approaching didn't look human. Tyler scanned towards the compound wall and the low, scrubby bushes, his heart suddenly clenching as if squeezed by an invisible hand. In the dim green light of the night vision goggles, a strange figure appeared, silent and unusual, causing the blood in his veins to seemingly freeze in that moment. It was a child, looking about 12 years old, head bowed towards the ground as if searching for something in the darkness. It just stood there, motionless, Tyler muttered, his voice cracking as he recounted it to his comrades later. But it wasn't its presence that made him tremble. It was the strange light emanating from its small body. An opaque white aura surrounded the child, emitting an eerie, otherworldly light. Amidst the ruins of Baghdad, where only dust and the stench of death existed, it glowed like a will-o'-the-wisp, cold and surreal. An aura, a sign of a lost soul, or an entity beyond the dimensions we understand. Reflexively, Tyler pulled the night vision goggles away from his eyes, hoping it was just an illusion from the device. But when the green light vanished, the child also melted into the darkness, leaving him bewildered amidst familiar shapes. "It's not there anymore," he whispered, breath coming in ragged gasps. But then, he lowered the goggles again, and it was still standing there, less than 30 yards away, motionless like a living statue, only visible through night vision, a characteristic of interdimensional entities or ghosts. I'd read dozens of similar reports. Things unseen by the naked eye, revealed only through technology, as if they were playing with the boundaries between worlds. Tyler stood frozen, eyes fixed on the glowing figure. A thought flickered through his mind, both innocent and terrifying. Look at it, like an angel. No dirt, no trace of war or poverty. In this godforsaken place, where even light was swallowed by darkness, its purity seemed like a challenge to reality. That white light, that aura, it wasn't normal. I understood his astonishment well. The contrast between angelic beauty and the desolate landscape created a surreal feeling, as if he had just touched a dream, or a nightmare disguised as paradise. And then, as if hearing Tyler's thoughts, the child looked up. Its eyes locked onto his through the night vision goggles, piercing through the darkness and his very mind. It looked at Tyler. His voice trembled, as if it knew what Tyler was thinking. I felt a chill. That connection wasn't random, but a sign of a consciousness beyond human comprehension. A smile spread across the child's lips, initially gentle as moonlight, but then gradually twisting, becoming empty. Tyler felt a cold dread. That smile wasn't human. Behind the innocence lay a cold abyss, as if inviting him into a world he should never enter. And then, the most horrific thing happened right before Tyler's eyes. The child's face began to twist, contorting in a grotesque dance. Its flesh twitched, eyes bulged, mouth stretched into a malevolent curve. I screamed in my head, but couldn't make a sound. An angel turned demon in an instant, like a living curse. Tyler could only think of one thing: the scene in The Passion of the Christ, when Judas betrays Christ. He remembered the children in the movie, their faces twisting into demonic, evil smiles that chilled viewers to the bone. "It was just like that," he muttered, "but realer, and 1,000 times scarier." My hand trembled as I read this part. "From angel to demon," he whispered. A transformation that wasn't just hallucination, but a warning. To me, this wasn't merely Tyler's experience, but living proof of supernatural entities hiding in the shadows of war, ready to manifest and challenge the sanity of anyone who dared to face them. That horrific image burned itself into Tyler's mind, like a scar that would never heal. It went from angel to demon in the blink of an eye. That sudden transformation was the sign of a malevolent entity, one wearing the guise of light to spread darkness. Tyler didn't know if he should call it a child anymore. With its twisted, evil face, the entity turned around, and then, without hesitation, it started walking straight towards the Humvee. It moved as if controlled. What the hell is happening? Tyler screamed in his head, heart pounding like it would burst from his chest. His fear seemed to fuel the fire within the entity. They feed on fear, a typical trait of malevolent supernatural entities, as if human emotion is fuel for their presence. As if reading the panic in his mind, the entity suddenly accelerated. From a slow walk, it broke into a jog, then charged straight at Tyler with insane speed. "It wants me," he thought, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. Through the night vision, the ghostly figure grew larger, closer, like a living nightmare rushing to devour him. Survival instinct kicked in. Tyler gripped the 240 Bravo tightly. "I have to shoot it," he told himself, the voice in his head roaring like gunfire. There was no other choice. That thing was coming like a death storm. Tyler ducked down, bringing the weapon into position, eyes glued to the sight. Through the night vision, the entity appeared clearer than ever. Distorted face, eyes burning like two hellfire embers. "It's right here," Tyler whispered, finger tightening. A dry click sounded as he flipped off the safety, ready to unleash rounds into the charging specter. Only 5 feet away. Tyler was stretched taut like a snapping bowstring. The distance was too close, so close he could almost feel its cold breath, if it breathed. A supernatural entity just an arm's reach from a soldier, in the thick darkness, where even the Humvee engine noise couldn't drown out the pounding of Tyler's heart. But right at that life or death moment, something unexpected happened. The other trucks, struggling to back into position, simultaneously switched on their headlights. Blinding white light tore through the darkness, flooding the area like a deluge. "My eyes burned," Tyler recounted, as the light beams hit his night vision goggles directly, temporarily blinding him in a sea of white light. Intense light, an element often disrupting paranormal phenomena. Coincidence or fate? The ghost vanished under the lights, as if unable to bear exposure. But for Tyler, that moment wasn't just salvation. It was also a haunting question. Did the light truly banish it, or just make it hide deeper? Only a second of blindness, but when Tyler's vision returned, the entity was gone. Not a trace, not a sound, as if it had never existed. The afterglow from the headlights remained, but the demonic specter had vanished into thin air. "Where did it go?" he muttered, breath coming in ragged gasps like he'd just escaped the Grim Reaper's scythe. Tyler put the safety back on the gun, leaned back against the turret, his body trembling from adrenaline and residual fear. He sighed, a heavy sound escaping his chest. The medic in the vehicle heard him, asking worriedly, "What's wrong, Tyler?" His voice was hoarse, trying to stay calm. "Nothing. I think I'm going crazy." But in his heart, he knew. It wasn't a hallucination, but the terrifying reality he had just faced. Self-doubt, a typical reaction of survivors after a supernatural encounter. For Tyler, the ensuing silence wasn't peace. It was the echo of an unspoken question. Will it come back? And in the Baghdad darkness, the answer hung suspended, cold as the entity's smile. The entire horrifying event lasted only a few seconds, but for Tyler, it was like a knife carving deep into his mind, leaving a scar that would never heal. "I feel like it's still there. Somewhere," he whispered when recounting it to his comrades. Such supernatural encounters often don't end when the entity disappears. They leave an imprint, like a silent curse. That night, the unit finished backing into the QRF position without further incident, at least in the visible world. But when Tyler closed his eyes, the darkness brought no rest. It was still there, in Tyler's head. For 3 consecutive nights, his brief sleep turned into nightmares, where the angelic face twisting into a demon repeated over and over, laughing at him from the unseen realm. Recurring nightmares. A sign of a psychic link or prolonged intrusion by the entity. I've studied dozens of similar cases. Soldiers haunted by what they saw, as if the entity didn't just appear in reality, but also planted seeds of horror deep within their minds, waiting for the day to sprout. A few days later, Tyler's unit left OP Red to return to FOB Falcon. The familiar routine: 4 tense days at the observation post, then a day and a half of rest and resupply. This time, they moved in a convoy along Route Red Wings, the haunting road that Tyler now viewed with suspicion. "It's not just a road anymore," he muttered. "It's a trap." Luckily, Tyler was positioned in the middle of the convoy, not the front or rear, a relatively safe spot. From the turret, he aimed his weapon towards the 3 o'clock position, eyes scanning the familiar landscape now tinged with horror. Anything could happen, he told himself, hand gripping the gun tightly, as if it were the only shield between him and the lurking ghosts. As the convoy rolled along, Tyler suddenly noticed a group of locals standing by the roadside. But his gaze didn't linger on the crowd, but on a little girl standing apart, leaning against a compound wall. About 20 yards away, she looked lonely, strange, like a misplaced figure under the harsh sunlight. "Something's wrong," he whispered, his heart starting to beat faster. Even in daylight, Route Red Wings exuded a sense of unease, as if covered by an invisible shroud. Tyler maintained his vigilance, scanning each local, trying to read intentions through eye contact, a vital survival skill in this dangerous land. But this girl, standing alone under the sun, sent a chill down his spine, like a discordant note in the symphony of war. As the Humvee drew closer, a cold draft ran down Tyler's spine. His combat instincts screamed, "This isn't human." He looked directly at the girl, and the moment their eyes met, his heart felt like it stopped. Her eyes were pure black, a deep, bottomless black that reflected no light, held no warmth, like 2 pits leading straight to hell. Simultaneously, another horrifying detail struck Tyler's perception. The girl stood right next to the wall, where there was a dry canal full of mud. There was no solid ground to stand on. "It's not standing," he muttered, sweat breaking out on his forehead. The girl floated just inches above the dirty water, defying all laws of physics in broad daylight. "What the hell is this?" Tyler screamed in his head, his body tense as a bowstring. That image wasn't just unusual. It was a cold confirmation that what he encountered in the night wasn't a hallucination. Black eyes, floating, signs of a high-level supernatural entity, unbound by the rules of the physical world. I knew Tyler had just encountered something far beyond human imagination. The convoy kept rolling sluggishly, but for Tyler, time seemed to stop. The black-eyed girl didn't move, just stood there, floating, her gaze locked onto him. "It knows me," he whispered, feeling stripped bare before an invisible force. Under the bright sun, that figure offered no comfort, but a cold warning of what awaited him in the coming darkness. The girl's gaze didn't just look. It pierced Tyler, like an ancient drill carrying millennia of malice, stripping away every layer of his defenses. "It wants to swallow me," he muttered, feeling his soul being pulled into the black holes of her eyes. Supernatural gaze, a tool of psychic intrusion, powerful and menacing. Just as the horror was about to engulf him, a scraggly tree by the roadside suddenly broke his line of sight. Only a second's interruption, but enough to break the terrifying connection. Tyler gasped for breath, heart pounding. "Is it gone?" he wondered, eyes darting across the scene as the Humvee passed the tree. But the spot where the girl had floated was now empty. Not a trace. Tyler frantically looked around, then glanced at his comrades in the vehicle ahead. No one reacted, No one panicked. Did only I see it? He wondered, doubt gnawing at his mind. Later, whispers at Fob Falcon revealed the chilling truth. He wasn't alone. I saw a shadow flash by, one soldier recounted. Eyes in the dark, another whispered. This land wasn't just cursed, it was alive with invisible entities. I firmly believe that place is cursed, Tyler wrote in the email, each word heavy as if carrying the breath of death. This story still terrifies Tyler, he confessed, and I still shudder when I think back. That feeling was all too familiar from the hundreds of testimonies I'd read. The fear never leaves, it just hides, waiting for the day to resurface. Setting Tyler's story aside momentarily, noting the familiar motifs: black-eyed child, cursed land. Moving on to the winged jinn file, a jinn entity with wings. A hesitant voice came through. Hey, Doc, I'm really sorry. I heard about your family. Hope you have a safe trip. The awkward, well-intentioned condolences were cut short by a terrified scream. Damn it, man. ID. What the hell is going on? Hey, radio him. See what's happening. Screams erupted, mixed with static and extreme panic. The recording stopped abruptly. Another violent mystery dropped onto my desk, like a challenge from the unseen realm. I rewound the recording, trying to separate each sound amidst the chaos. Screams, static, whistling wind, all blending into a symphony of horror. What's going on? Why did we stop? A voice crackled over the radio, full of worry and frustration. A convoy in a deadly zone never stops without reason, unless something beyond control happened. The reply from the lead vehicle stunned the entire convoy. Something flew right across the front of the vehicle. Imagining a blurry shape darting through the headlights, too fast for anyone to react. This wasn't an IED, but something alive, agile, and not of this world. I felt like I had just opened a door leading to an abyss. Black-eyed child, demonic entity, and now something flying. With each story, the cursed land revealed more of its nature. A battlefield not just of bullets, but of supernatural entities lurking in the darkness. What the hell? What did he just say? Flew across the front of the vehicle. The word flew rang like an alarm bell, eliminating mundane explanations. This wasn't human or animal, but something more terrifying. A winged cryptid, a low-flying UFO, or an entity not of this world. That's right. Did you guys see anything? The voice of the soldier in the lead vehicle was tight as a bowstring, trembling with adrenaline. No, we didn't see anything. The replies from other vehicles came back, definitive and bewildered. Only the lead vehicle witnessed it? That anomaly sent a shiver down his spine, as if the thing chose who got to see it, leaving others in the darkness of doubt. Did anyone hear that echo? ELO? Another voice cut in, full of confusion. Yes, I heard it, but didn't see it. Multiple confirmations, voices trembling. An echo without a source in the empty desert. No wind, no objects, just a ghostly sound hanging in the air. Invisible echo. A sign of supernatural presence. A whisper from another realm. Check the other two vehicles. The sergeant's command began, but was cut off by a terrifying scream. Sergeant, what the hell am I looking at? There's something out there. A seasoned soldier who had faced bombs and bullets now screamed like a child before something beyond imagination. Oh my God, what is that thing? I opened the last file, a story from 2020 by a female U.S. Army medic, posted under the name Have a Ducky 81. She served in Iraq in 2006. Her unit arrived in Iraq in April 2006 stationed in Ramadi. Ramadi, about 76 miles west of Baghdad, a notorious crucible of war where explosions and eerie stories intertwined. She was in a Humvee, heading towards Baghdad for emergency leave because a relative had passed away. Personal grief mingled with battlefield stress. That state of mind might have opened the door to the unusual. It was almost midnight, she recounted, her writing style seeming to sag under the weight of the desert darkness. Midnight, the hour of hidden entities, when the vast desert becomes a curtain concealing terrifying secrets. I pictured the Humvee rolling through the night, weak headlights cutting through the darkness, unaware of what lurked ahead. She sat there, alone with her sorrow, as if the darkness outside blended with her soul. I sensed that loneliness. A female medic on the battlefield, carrying loss, easily becoming a target for supernatural entities. Something felt wrong, she muttered in her memory, never expecting that night would change her forever. Ramadi, midnight, a soldier burdened with grief. All ingredients for a terrifying encounter. She didn't just see it, she felt it. With each line, he knew he was about to enter a new story, where darkness wasn't just the enemy, but a gateway to nameless entities. The Humvee had 3 other people and a turret gunner, the female medic recounted, her writing detailed as if redrawing the scene that night. 2 other Humvees accompanied us, each with 5 people. 1 leading, 1 following. We were in the middle. The convoy rolled through the darkness, weak headlights cutting across the desert, unaware of the lurking specter. She wasn't carrying her rifle, having turned it in for leave, weaponless, defenseless. In a land where death could strike at any moment, that helplessness felt like a silent invitation to entities hiding in the darkness, waiting for a chance to attack. Then, everything erupted. The Humvee in front slammed on its brakes, screeching, tires grinding on sand, dust billowing. Everyone immediately thought IED or VBI'd, the familiar fear of every soldier in Iraq, a car bomb, the invisible weapon that could tear apart the entire convoy in an instant. The team leader immediately radioed, "Lead vehicle, what's your status?" His voice hurried over the radio waves. But before getting an answer, everyone's eyes were drawn away from the road, towards the desolate desert beside them. Something was out there, she muttered in her memory, a cold feeling crawling up her spine as the darkness revealed its terrifying secret. We all saw it, she emphasized, her writing heavy, a giant black figure. Not one person's hallucination. All 3 vehicles, dozens of pairs of eyes, witnessed it together. A blurry shape, enormous like a giant bird from mythology, standing starkly in the desert, defying all logic and biology. But it wasn't just the shape. The thing emanated thick smoke, pitch black mixed with a sickly green and hints of eerie blue, swirling around its body like a living shroud. Supernatural smoke, a sign of jinn or cryptid, a physical manifestation of its extraordinary nature. Could be camouflage, or how it moves between dimensions. We tried using night vision, she recounted, but it wasn't clear. 2 soldiers with better devices whispered, "I see something, but can't identify it." The ghostly smoke distorted vision, as if the entity intentionally concealed itself. It didn't want to be seen clearly. An intelligent consciousness hidden behind the horrific appearance, making the threat exponentially greater. Only a second or 2 of strained observation, then violence struck. A large rock was thrown at the Humvee, about the size of a human head. A dry thud, glass shattering everywhere. This wasn't just presence. The entity had physical strength, clear, hostile intent, like a declaration of war from the unseen realm. Who threw it? A soldier yelled inside the vehicle, but no one answered. The desert was empty. No people. Only the giant figure and the eerie smoke. Signs of a powerful entity. Not just an illusion. It wanted them to know it was there. And it was dangerous. The air inside the vehicle grew thick with fear and confusion. "What just happened?" the turret gunner whispered, his voice cracking. The convoy stopped, headlights sweeping the desert, but the giant figure had melted into the darkness, leaving the rock as the only evidence. To me, this wasn't just a story, but a warning from a world humans have never truly understood. The entire convoy fell into a dead silence, stunned by the sudden attack. The rock lay there, like a challenge from the darkness. We couldn't shoot. Strict rules of engagement bound them. No clear target, no firing. I understood that restraint was both a shield and shackles on the line between life and death. Instead of weapons, they switched on high-powered spotlights, blinding white light sweeping directly onto the entity. They wanted to see it clearly, or at least scare it away. But its reaction was beyond imagination. Under the light, it shot straight up into the sky. A giant black shadow launching upwards, invisible wings tearing through the air like a nightmare escaping confinement. Simultaneously, a terrifying sound echoed across the desert. A piercing shriek, like grinding metal mixed with the scream of a creature not of Earth. "My ears were ringing," she muttered in her memory. Supernatural sound. Sign of UFO or jinn, sensitive to light, reacting with violent intensity. I felt a chill, as if that shriek still echoed through the pages. Everything happened in seconds, but enough to sear itself into their minds. Chaos amidst shock, curiosity, and panic. What the hell just happened? One soldier yelled, his voice cracking. What was that thing? No one answered. Only ragged breaths and bewildered glances exchanged in the Humvee's darkness. Upon reaching Baghdad, while waiting for processing, they met an Iraqi interpreter. Hesitantly, they recounted the encounter. The man listened, his face strangely calm. "Sounds like you met an Ifrit," he said evenly. "A what?" the team leader interrupted, eyes wide. "Ifrit," he repeated. "A winged jinn." That explanation perfectly matched what he knew of Middle Eastern mythology. Ifrit, powerful, malevolent, associated with fire and smoke. In Arab culture, they are terrifying supernatural entities, often appearing winged, bringing destruction. The locals understand them better than we do. I sensed the deep connection between the phenomenon and the ancient legends American soldiers stumbled upon. She was stunned silent and decided not to report it. The fear of being labeled with combat fatigue, the precursor to PTSD, weighed heavily on them. Who wants their career ruined over a winged thing? She wondered, her voice full of bitterness. I had seen too many soldiers bury the truth to protect themselves from doubt and ridicule. It's been 13 years, but the story isn't over. She met her husband in 2015, she shared. He was also a soldier, stationed in Ramadi with the 26th Infantry Division. A strange coincidence. He had also traveled that road. When she told her story, he was stunned. After a moment of silence, he whispered, "I saw something on that road too. I felt like a door to a new mystery had just opened." "It sounds exactly like your story," he said, eyes looking distant. "Two stories, two soldiers, the same cursed road. How chillingly coincidental was that?" They sat there, looking at each other. She wrote, as if they'd just discovered a terrifying secret. Two soldiers who had faced the darkness of Ramadi now faced each other through a shared memory. "That road isn't normal," he whispered to her. To me, this wasn't just coincidence, but proof that the land was an intersection for supernatural entities, waiting for anyone daring to cross. On the dusty road near Ramadi, 2 U.S. military units, at different times but only days apart, encountered a strange entity. A tall figure, tattered wings like a giant bat's, hovering in midair. The first unit stopped, guns aimed into the darkness, but no one dared pull the trigger. One soldier yelled, "Damn it, it's looking at me." Eyes red like fire. Meanwhile, the unit of the female medic's husband floored it, driving past like escaping hell. Running? Or did they know stopping meant death? Was their order different? Or was what they saw even more terrifying? An ancient jinn, an ifrit from the desert with charred black wings and the foul breath of sulfur, ready to devour the soul of anyone who dared face it. The female medic, recounting the story, entered with a cold tone. "I'm a medic. Death is just part of the job for me." But then she paused, her eyes sunken. Especially in Ramadi, 2006-2007. Blood stained the sand. Screams never stopped. She saw so many die, sometimes I wondered if I was still alive myself. She continued, her voice dropping as if afraid of being overheard. A nearby aid station was ambushed. She heard the explosion, then the screams died out. When she arrived, only charred body parts were scattered around. She tried to save a young private, but his arm came off in my hand the moment I touched him. I knew it well. War is a gateway to hell, where the living and the dead merge. Did being immersed in death make her more sensitive to the other side? The line between life and death there was thin as smoke, and maybe something slipped through. I recalled ancient records of warrior spirits, entities bound by blood and hatred, unable to leave the battlefield, or those who touched them. Then, she reached the most terrifying part, her voice cracking. "I can't understand this. It didn't end in Iraq." She felt a cold draft run down her spine. She thinks, something followed her home. A sentence chilling enough for anyone. It's the sign of a supernatural attachment. Something that doesn't let go. Something that takes root in the victim's soul. She wasn't sure what it was. Trembling hands clutching a cold coffee cup. But sometimes she thought it was a soldier. One she couldn't save. She heard heavy footsteps in the house at night, like combat boots on the floor. Once she saw a figure standing at the foot of the bed, silent, just watching her. I thought it could be the spirit of a soldier, trapped in pain and resentment, attached to the last person who touched them. But it could also be. I thought of the winged jinn they encountered on the road. If it was an ancient entity, it marked her as prey, followed her across oceans, across time, to demand something she couldn't give. The last 2 places she lived, it was still there. Knocking on the door at midnight, dark shadows flitting past the window. Her husband said he saw a pair of glowing red eyes in the car mirror, but when he looked back, nothing was there. This wasn't a location haunting anymore. This was a personal haunting. Rare, persistent, and extremely dangerous. Finally, she ended with a haunting sentence. For the living, death is a terrible thing to witness. But for a medic like her, or any soldier there, it's more than that. It's not just dying. It's living with death. And sometimes, death lives with you. I wondered, how many more soldiers are living with nameless ghosts? Not just the scars of war, but curses from the desert, entities growling in the darkness, following them all the way home. It weighs heavily on the mind. Long after the guns fall silent, the real battle begins. A fight no one sees, no one hears. Only the person involved feels every cold cut, the invisible hands tightening around soldiers' throats in their sleep. I'm familiar with the usual explanations. Prolonged sleep deprivation, blurring vision, battlefield stress turning air into mirages, psychological trauma painting monsters that aren't real. I once heard a soldier whisper, "I swear I saw it, but the doc said it was just my mind playing tricks on me." A logical explanation, if only one person saw it. But what about when an entire unit witnesses the same thing? I recalled the female medic's story. The winged figure hovering over the Ramadi Road, eyes red like burning coals. Or the incident near the Iraq-Iran border, where dozens of soldiers heard heavy footsteps echoing in the night, though radar detected nothing. Mass hallucination? Or was it something that had crossed the boundary of this world? There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio. Hamlet's words, echoing from 400 years ago, now sounded like a chilling warning. Shakespeare never set foot on an Iraqi battlefield, never heard the scream of a cursed soul. If I were here, would I dare to write more? Death, the eternal question of Hamlet, of humanity, is always central to my thoughts. I remember Hamlet holding the dagger, crazed eyes staring into the void, muttering about the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns. But I know, through the chilling accounts from the battlefield, that some travelers have returned, not in flesh and blood, but as knocks on the door at midnight, as dark shadows gliding down hallways. If Shakespeare heard what I hear, the flickering creatures, the ghosts passing through walls, the glowing entities hovering in the air, would he dare call death the end? I remembered a soldier's words. He saw it standing there. No legs, no face. Just a hoarse laugh like wind whistling through dry bones. I looked at a sketch from Iraq. A tall creature, tattered wings, eyes glowing like headlights in the fog. They aren't just hallucinations. They are evidence that there are things beyond philosophy, beyond science. Things lurking, waiting, and perhaps hunting us. Does something truly exist that can pierce the thin veil between us, the living, breathing, and the unknown, the country? Hamlet believed no one returned from. A cold wind slipped through the crack in the door, as if answering me with the hiss of darkness. My research is filled with chilling reports, echoes from the dead, hazy figures in the mist, and even conscious entities, seemingly stalking. That veil isn't as solid as we think. Something has slipped through, or worse, never left. Invisible creatures, standing silently behind soldiers returning from war. Specific places, bloody battlefields, old cemeteries, specific times, midnight when the moon is hidden, and psychological states, extreme fear, inescapable pain. That's when the veil thins, revealing things not meant to be seen. I shuddered, remembering a soldier's cracking scream on an old recording. And what about personal experiences? I don't just look for evidence in dry documents, but for doorways to parallel worlds, where entities growl, ghosts whisper, living alongside us unnoticed. Is there something out there? The question stabbed my mind like a knife. Then I remembered another report from a soldier named Jake. Jake saw something strange, but thought it was just a hallucination. That week, Jake barely slept. Only a few hours in 7 miserable days at recon. Sleep deprivation, stress, the perfect explanation. But what if it wasn't? Recon training at Camp Pendleton is a living nightmare. 3 days without sleep, body exhausted, mind like a snapped guitar string. Jake recounted, "It was the second mission. We climbed the northern slope, legs trembling, about to buckle. Jake just wanted to scream, 'Let me sleep.' That state doesn't just create hallucinations, it opens dark doors of perception. They moved in a staggered column formation, heavy boots crunching on dusty ground. Jake wrote, "We had to constantly check on teammates, glance over the shoulder, make sure the guy behind was still there. If not, you're dead." The steep hill, wind whistling through bushes, and the darkness seemed to move, as if something was watching from afar. And then, suddenly, Jake glanced right, and Chonky was there, right beside Jake. Chonky should have been behind, in formation. But now he walked level with Jake, eyes empty, footsteps unnaturally silent. It wasn't right. Not right at all. Jake thought. Maybe he just wanted to get up the hill faster. Who wasn't tired? They were exhausted, just wanted it over. But a staggered column isn't broken easily. Chonky couldn't have moved up without anyone noticing, unless it wasn't Chonky. I imagined a disguised figure, silently walking beside Jake, waiting. The horror intensified as Jake continued writing. The instructor was with us. He was right there. If Chonky broke formation, he'd be screaming immediately. So who, or what, was walking beside him? The darkness on the hill, the gasping breath of soldiers, and an invisible entity, borrowing Chonky's form, silently slipping into the ranks. As team leader, the soldier felt a surge of fear rise in his chest. He thought, "Damn it, if the instructor sees this messed up formation, the whole team's gonna get chewed out." His eyes darted quickly in the darkness, cold sweat trickling down his spine despite the biting night wind. Jake turned to the figure on his right, trying to whisper urgently without the instructor hearing. "Hey man, fall back. What the hell are you doing?" His voice trembled, a mix of anger and panic. "Fall back now. We're in a staggered column, come on." But Chonky didn't respond, just kept walking silently, like a soulless shadow. Jake almost screamed in his head, "Fall back, you idiot!" He repeated it constantly, his voice hoarse with stress, but the person beside him showed no reaction. An exhausted soldier, gasping for breath, trying to move a silent figure, something that didn't belong in the formation, didn't belong in this world. He didn't pay Jake any attention. It was pitch black. Jake wore night vision, the green light making everything look like hell. Jake tried to get a clear look at him, nods on his left eye, right eye aching from sleep deprivation. Jake turned awkwardly just to see his face, but he just kept walking as if he didn't hear, didn't see. The steep hill, darkness swallowing all sound, leaving only the crunch of boots and heavy breathing. The eerie light from the night vision shone on Chonky. But was it really him? A silent, defiant entity, marching alongside like a warning from another realm. The soldier fumbled in his heavy gear, turning awkwardly to get a better look. Jake gritted his teeth. "Who are you? What do you want?" But before he could get a fix, a terrifying shock hit him. The blood in his veins felt like it froze, breath caught in his throat as a voice spoke. Not from the person beside him. The real Chonky's voice, deep, clear, familiar, came from behind. "Man, what the hell? Who are you talking to?" The soldier whipped around, night vision trembling, heart pounding like it would explode. And there, the real Chonky, standing correctly in formation, a few yards away, eyes wide with confusion. "Wait a second," the soldier whispered, his voice lost in panic. He turned back to his right. The other one was still there, marching steadily, silently, without faltering. If Chonky's behind me, then what's walking next to me? A chill ran down his spine, like an invisible hand tightening around his neck. This definitely wasn't a hallucination. Sleep deprivation can blur vision, but it can't create such a vivid entity. A shape-shifting creature, borrowing Chonky's form, silently infiltrating the formation, waiting for the moment to reveal its true nature. The soldier stood frozen on the hill, eyes darting between the real Chonky and the other thing. He screamed in his head, "What are you?" But the figure beside him didn't answer, just continued walking, like a puppet controlled by invisible strings. I guessed maybe it was a doppelganger, or something worse, an entity from a crack in reality, exploiting their exhaustion to manifest. A cold realization, like ice, crept through the soldier's mind. If the real Chonky is behind me, then what was just walking next to me? What just listened to me yell in its face? Jake felt the blood stop flowing, breath caught as if squeezed by an invisible hand. Panic erupted. He spun sharply to the right, heart hammering against his ribs. "Where are you?" He screamed silently in his head, eyes wide, night vision trembling, ready to face anything. A ghost, a monster, or his own fear made manifest. But there was nothing. Not a soul. Not a trace. The figure identical to Chonky, with the heavy gait, the broad shoulders, had vanished like smoke in the night wind. The soldier stood frozen, whispering. Just a few scraggly trees and bushes. Impossible! His voice trembled, as if trying to convince himself it wasn't real. Doppelganger. The ghostly double. Not uncommon in military reports. But this one. It had physical form, walked alongside, clearly visible through night vision, then vanished when detected. This wasn't hallucination. Something took advantage of Jake. And was this a trick of an exhausted mind, or a shape-shifting entity, lurking in the darkness, waiting for the moment of human weakness? I know Camp Pendleton is no stranger to legends. Whispers in the woods, figures gliding over hills at night. That place could be a portal. Jake told Mike, an Iraq veteran, everything on his podcast. I'm not crazy, but I'm not sure what it was either. Must find Mike at Atlas News. Conversations like that always reveal details buried by official reports. The most chilling details. I knew the work never stops. Each story is a piece of a terrifying puzzle. Skinwalkers lurking in the southwest. UFOs hovering over Afghan battlefields. Curses clinging to units for decades. They are all waiting for me. Peace and safety to you. The soldiers still fighting. Not just the enemy, but nameless ghosts. May God be with you, whatever you face. A cold wind blew past, as if carrying a distant moan. I have to keep going. Mysteries don't wait, and neither does the darkness. Before me lies a new report. April 13th, 2003. A unit in Baghdad hears knocking in the middle of the desert, but no one is there. I shivered, ready to step into the next nightmare.